Hey guys, it's Nyjah. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about shadow work and the shadow self. And I thought that this video was really important and relevant to me right now because I'm noticing my energy was starting to be very drained and I was starting to think very toxic. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Well, girlfriend, it was time to do some shadow work. So if this video is interesting to you, please make sure that you thumbs up the video as well as subscribe if you're new to the channel. I post new videos every week. All right, let's talk about the shadow self. There are many things that make up the shadow self, okay? So typically the shadow self can be composed of things that might have happened in your childhood, like childhood traumas. There also could be like ancestral and lineage things that can collectively make up the shadow self. But essentially the shadow self is the version of yourself that you don't outwardly show, that everybody doesn't get to interact with. But trust and believe, when you get ticked off or when you get triggered, that shadow self comes out. And the reason why the shadow self first of all is created is because there is a lot of things that we go through on our day-to-day. You know, we're breaking up with people, we're making up with people, we're having fights with our friends, we're, you know what I mean, interacting with people who have cynical intentions, you know what I mean, like watching things on TV, listening things on the radio, and all kinds of things can you know, collectively be a lot of toxic things that we're consuming on a regular basis. So as we're consuming these things, you know, there is a shadow self or a dark side of ourselves that is being created, that whenever we are in a you know what I mean, like triggering situation, that shadow side can come out, okay? So the significance of dealing with the shadow self is taking back your power. If you acknowledge that you do have a shadow self or a dark side that can come out when you're in a triggering state, if you want to take your power back and be in control of your life in every situation, and you acknowledge, you know what I mean, and heal those traumas or those past things, those past limiting beliefs even that are lingering around in your subconscious mind or in the background, if you learn how to handle it and deal with it, you'll be able to get further in life without carrying as much baggage with you. So that's the significance of doing shadow work, acknowledging the shadow self, acknowledging the dark side or the lower vibrations of oneself. There's a lot of times, like in the spiritual community, people want to be love and light, love and light, love and light all the time, but don't realize that yes, there is a shadow self, yes, there is a negative side, yes, you're not always going to be happy and goody gumdrops, and when you are on those lower frequencies, on those lower vibrations, yes, that shadow self can creep up and come out and manifest in the forms of negative thoughts or negative words or a stank attitude, you know what I mean? So all of this will contribute to the shadow self. So again, checking the shadow self means that whenever you encounter things that should be triggering and that the average person would be triggered by, for example, let's say you are driving and there's a lot of traffic, the average person would be like, I'm in a hurry, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. You know what I mean? Like cursing people out and honking your horn and being really nasty. That could be their shadow side coming out because they are impatient, and that's the way that their shadow self expresses that impatience within them. But if you deal with that shadow self within you and you deal with the aspect of you that is not patient, then in turn you might be in traffic and be like, you know what, everything happens for a reason, maybe I don't need to get there as fast as I thought I did, let me turn on my favorite songs or play my favorite YouTube video and just cruise and enjoy this traffic because I'm gonna get there in divine timing. Okay, so you can see the difference between, you know, being in your higher self and being in your lower self. The higher self says best case scenario is going to happen for me no matter what, so I don't really have to worry, I can cruise, I can flow. But when you're in your shadow self or your lower self, you can be like, you know, there's like a scarcity or a lack mindset, right? So it's like, I have to be the best and no one can do what I can do and I have to get what I want when I want it, because there's like a scarcity mindset or a lack mindset that if I do not be this nasty toxic person to get my needs met, then my needs are going to be met. But your needs are going to be met. So let's continue. So I know a lot of people want to know, how can they introduce themselves to their shadow self, or how can they, you know, begin to understand even who their shadow self is, or how can they find or spot spot the shadow within themselves? Well, your triggers are a key point to how to find your shadow self. Anything that triggers you or makes you upset is a great way to see what your shadow self is. So your triggers are going to help you to introduce you to your shadow self, okay? Triggers are produced by, again, traumas. So like, let's say you had an ex-boyfriend and he was like really toxic, and so now when you're dealing with your new guy, you know what I mean, you get triggered when you're in arguments with him because he's saying all the wrong things, and it's subconsciously taking you back to that toxic relationship you were in. And so instead of being your higher self, I'm just gonna listen, I'm gonna be compassionate, your shadow self comes out and takes over and is like, no, you're not going to treat me this way. You're not going to do X, Y, and Z to me. I've already done this before. So you can see how the shadow self kind of comes up to protect you in some ways, because the shadow self is like the hyper version of the ego. The ego is created to kind of wrap and comfort or like protect, you know what I mean, the soft version of you, the soft childlike essence of you. So then the ego is born. But then the ego can get toxic sometimes when the ego, again, gets in that scarcity mindset of I gotta get what I need to get and no one can give it to me, I have to get it from us, you know what I mean, like this just toxic mindset. So you can see how the shadow self can come up and can be introduced by triggers. So again, if you're like, I don't have any triggers, I've dealt with everything, I've done all my shadow work, but you can constantly get in an argument with somebody, again, if you have the need to get into an argument with somebody, that is a trigger. And it's a trigger because, one, you feel the need to argue to get your need met, or you feel like, you know, if you don't argue or stress your point, they're taking your power, and that's just not the case. So yeah, that's just an example. Triggers introduce you to your shadow self. So really just pay attention to anywhere in your life where you may have been triggered. Maybe it's in your friend groups, or maybe it's in your friendships or your family relationships, right? Anything like that. Look at your triggers, look at what makes you upset, or look at what makes you sad, look at what makes you feel down. Those are your triggers, and your triggers are the touch point to introduce you to your shadow self, because collectively all of these triggers make up the shadow self. But the way to heal and transmute that energy is to walk yourself through, you know what I mean, these case scenarios as your higher self. This is how you add medicine into the shadow self so that you can heal and transmute these traumas, okay? So I hope that makes sense. So I have another example of how the shadow self can come up, like even in modern day. Let's say like somebody gets very jealous or envious extremely easy, or not even easy. Like let's just say you have a friend and you're like, everything goes right for this friend. They always get exactly what they want. They get the money they want. They have the family they want. They have the friendships they want. They have the house they want. They have the car they want. I'm sick of it. Like why, right? And it makes you feel jealous or envious, right? Or let's say even on social media, you just, you know what I mean, there's like this weird message that social media is toxic because it makes you envious or jealous of other people. Well, I have to tell you guys this: you only get jealous or envious of other people because they possess a quality or trait or an item that they have that you know that you should have, or that you deserve, or that you will potentially have. So I'll give you guys an example for me in my personal life. I had a girlfriend, and I was starting to get a little bit envious of her. I was like, okay, she constantly is getting the clients that she wants. She's beautiful. She's productive. Her businesses are amazing. You know what I mean? Like she's just very, like she's just got it going on, right? And then I said, bitch, but so do you. Right? So the things that we're envious about in other people, we're only envious or jealous about those things because we know that us ourselves should be able to cultivate or hone in on that thing that we admire about the other people. I'll give you an example. Like when you give somebody a compliment and you're like, oh, they have a beautiful smile, I love their smile, they have a great smile. You gave them that compliment because you yourself value having a beautiful, great smile. As well as like if you were like, oh, she has beautiful hair, I love her hair, she has fantastic, amazing hair. You are able to give out that compliment because you yourself, that's something that you value within yourself, right? So whenever you feel envious or jealous of other people, let's say you're on Instagram, you're scrolling and somebody just went on the most amazing trip that you would love to go on. Let's say they went to Greece or somewhere fabulous and they're taking amazing pictures and they're with their boyfriend and they look fantastic, right? And you're starting to feel jealous. You're starting to feel jealous because you know that you are worthy of the thing that they are flaunting or showing off. So it's not that it's bad to be jealous. Actually, our jealousy is a good thing. It shows us this is what I want. This is what I need to aim for. This is what I need to look for and go after. You never have to be jealous of somebody once you realize that you're only jealous because something in you internally knows that you are capable of possessing what it is, the trait or the characteristic or the item or the adventure, whatever it is, that the person that you're jealous or envious of has. Okay? So this is how, again, we squash these stories in the shadow self, because the shadow wants to be jealous and be like, they don't deserve what they have, they didn't work hard enough, they didn't this, they didn't that, you know what I mean? And that shadow self will energetically block you from the things that you're meant to be receiving and manifesting. And that's the significance of checking the shadow self. You check the shadow self and say, hey, I don't need to be jealous about that because I know I'm gonna have that big, amazing, incredible business. I don't have to be jealous about that because I know my dream and ideal clients are waiting for me and looking for me too. I don't have to be jealous because I know how to beat my face and how to look beautiful and how to dress beautiful and how to, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to be jealous because I'm going to go on that dream vacation and I'm going to have that dream love. So there's no need to ever be jealous, and I don't have to rush it, and I don't have to be in a hurry to get to it because it's just gonna come and it's fine. It's great, okay? So this is, again, how we squash that shadow self. And this is something that I had to tell myself because I was starting to feel extremely drained by the fact that everything was going so right for my friend. And then I was like, but that's a good thing. And when you learn how to be happy for other people, that in turn shows the universe that you're open and welcoming and receiving of what it is that you're, seeing in those people. It's like when somebody wins the lottery and they win $500, are you going to say, oh, you're such a... I hate that you won that $500. Like, you just gamble every day anyway, so it doesn't even matter. Like, you know what I mean? Just saying some hate and stuff, right? But it's like, why would you say that? Because you can just be happy for that person, you know what I mean? And let that positive energy rub off on you, and then you can take that positive energy and you go win the lottery, or you get gifted $500, or you know what I mean? Something good can happen to you because you choose to be happy and positive and look for the silver lining and be positive for other people. When we're happy for other people, we're happy for ourselves. We are a mirror. If you can be happy for somebody else, you're happy for yourself. And again, this is how you shrink the shadow self. Okay, so let's keep it moving. Okay, so remember what I said, when you get in arguments with other people, it is a really great indication that you are not spending enough time with yourself and for yourself. Because typically we get in arguments with other people because we don't feel like our side is being heard, or we don't feel like they're listening, we don't feel like what we think is being acknowledged. But once you understand that your acknowledgement is the only acknowledgement that matters, you can no longer, you know what I mean, you shrink that shadow self within you that's like, we have to think the same, we have to agree, you have to agree with what I think, you know what I mean? Because it's like, no, nobody has to agree with what anybody thinks. As long as everybody values their own opinion and allows other people to have their own opinion, that shrinks the shadow self. That gets rid of that ego monster that's like, we all have to think the same and conform. And if you don't think the way that I think, then you're stupid and you're dumb. You know what I mean? That's, again, the shadow getting nasty and egoic, because it thinks that if you don't agree with what I think, then my opinion is invalid and doesn't make sense, and you're better than me. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. This is just the shadow self-talk. If you notice that you're getting in arguments with friends or family members or even strangers that you don't know, it's because you're giving your power away. You're not spending enough time with yourself, validating yourself, acknowledging yourself, giving yourself the self-love, the self-care, the self-talk that you need. Because again, when we're arguing with other people, it's because we're trying to get them on board to understand what we already know to be true within ourselves. And remember, the truth is subjective. So from my perspective, this is what the truth looks like. And from your perspective, that's what the truth looks like, and it's all right, okay? And once we all, as a society, understand this, then I just feel like, you know what I mean, a lot of shadow selves will be brought to the light, and the energy will be transmuted, and we'll all be good to go. And yeah, that's just what I think. Now I want to talk about fears, okay? So facing your fears is how you bring light to your shadows. So a lot of people, their shadows are very big and very dark because they don't explore their fears. Now I know that sounds like really like cynical, like why would I want to explore my fears? I'm scared of my fears, I don't like my fears, I don't want my fears. Well, hear me out. fears are low vibing ideas and thought forms and things of that nature, right? If you bring light to it, is literally just doing a simple thing. I'll give you an example for myself how I brought light to my shadow self that was carrying on to a lot of fear. So my example is, I used to have a fear of ghosts and of demons and of angels, okay? Just basically like spirits and entities and things that were not human, but that I intuitively and psychically knew were around, because I don't know, I just always felt like I should pick up on that, or I could be able to see into that realm and whatever, right? So for me, that was always a fear, and I would never let my mind go too deep in these thoughts of, oh, how do you do this and how do you do that, and you know what I mean? Like, it was just a very scary topic to me. But the way that I brought light to this shadow or to this fear within myself is I started to do research. So I started to research things about, oh wow, and as I said this, I see an eagle. I love that. What a beautiful sign. But I started to research, you know, what is a ghost? What is a spirit? How do you communicate with them? What is an angel? What is a demon? Why are they demons? Why are they angels? What makes them this? What makes them that? You know what I mean? And by satiating, is that the word? By bringing light, by answering my own questions to my fears, I removed the fear, and now I don't have these fears because I've educated myself. So remember, whenever we feel fear about something, and the fear again is connected to the shadow, because the shadow self will let you think, you know, that you can just hold on to fears and that it's okay to be fearful. When you bring light to the fear and bring light to the shadow self through knowledge, through, you know what I mean, figuring things out and making logical sense of things, things become very less scary, and that's what brings light to the shadow. So yeah, I hope this makes sense. There, like, literally all of the low vibing energies like shame, guilt, fear, anything like that, that is connected to the shadow self. So if you have a shadow self, they might, you know what I mean, gravitate to those low vibing energies. So the way to check this within yourself is to just literally, you can do like a journaling session, you can talk to yourself, you can pray to your angels, guides, and ancestors, and you can say, just show me where my triggers are, show me where my shadow is, show me what am I holding on to that I don't need to be holding on to, right? And then like do a journaling session about it. Or even like every time you get triggered, every time like something rubs you the wrong way, or you feel, you know what I mean, depleted of your energy, or like something has siphoned your energy, that's a really great opportunity to do a journal session and just write about it. And this is how you introduce yourself to your shadow side, not to be scared of it and to be like, oh, I have to get rid of my shadow side, I have to, you know what I mean? Like, no, the shadow is, again, created by the ego. It's here to protect you in some sense, because if you're just going all willy-nilly and you weren't afraid of anything, you would be very reckless, right? So the shadow self is just here to remind you, you know what I mean, of things within yourself that need a little bit of extra care, extra attention, extra TLC, okay? This is where you need to be loved a little bit more so that you can in turn love other people a little bit more in that way. Because what we'll notice is if you have a shadow or a block about something, you're not able to show up for other people in the way they need you to show up for them, because you cannot show up for yourself in that way, because again, you have that shadow or that block. Remember, it is your responsibility to become acquainted with your shadow self. So again, you can become a sovereign being, okay? No one can take your power from you, and you won't give your power willingly to anybody else once you understand your shadow self. Because again, understanding your shadow self sometimes will give up power or give up what we know to be right or true to somebody else, because we have traumas within ourselves. We would rather just give it off to somebody else instead of just, you know, going within and understanding why we feel the way that we feel. So yeah, it's very important to address your shadow self. Remember, this is the key thing. If you take away anything else from this video, your triggers will introduce you to your shadow or to your traumas. So yeah, if you just deal with it very slowly like an onion, just peeling away at it. And remember, there's not a I do it once and it's done forever. As long as you're living, you're going to have some kind of shadow. And you know what I mean? If you have a really great relationship with yourself, your shadow doesn't have to be a mystery to yourself. You can just know that, hey, I'm the way that I am, and I'm working on myself. I'm working on transmuting this energy within myself. And it's also you can show up for other people better when you understand why you are the way that you are, okay? So I really hope that this video was helpful. If it was, please make sure that you thumbs up. Let me know if you're going to be doing any shadow work, if you're going to be diving deep, if you're going to be, you know what I mean, an empathic crusader, you know what I mean, getting through the darkness that is within yourself, okay? I love you guys. I will see you in my next video.